something really brilliant, it will be captured. We won't have to try to fake it later.
Okay, sounds good.
So, what I do like to do, even though it's a podcast, it should typically, traditionally just be audio, but I do like to make the link available to the Zoom in case people prefer to watch the video. Are you fine with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Some people are like, oh, but I didn't put makeup on, like, well, I didn't either.
Yeah, it's hard to get a good haircut these days, right?
I know, exactly. For a long time, it was just like a mangy mess, but my friend cut it for me, so it's not so bad now.
Yeah, mine got cut extra short this time in the front, so I'm like, that's what happens. Okay.
We can't be fussy.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm rearranging myself here. Now, I think in my intro, I told you that I can either record the intro, which I do afterwards, or I can say my little spiel that I say, and then you can tell people about yourself. It's just however you're most comfortable. If you're confident that I'm going to do a good job, then I'll do it, add it in as an intro.
Yeah, why don't you take care of it offline?
Yep. Okay. That's fine. That's great. And then, so thank you very much, first of all, for being here and for sharing what is, I think, a really fascinating, oh, there goes a plane. I don't know. Can you hear that?
Nope.
Okay, good. I think this is a pretty decent mic, but like I'm in the flight path today. So sometimes I think, oh man, they're going to just hear this plane and they won't be able to hear my voice. But yeah, I think I had something similar or this. Is this ever, so anyway, let's start over. So Betsy, one of your techniques, one of the things that you do and speak about and teach is this EFT, which is emotional,
freedom techniques.
Emotional freedom technique. And I think I might have had this done in Florida. Is it ever called body talk?
Well, body talk is another process. So
okay,
it might
different.
be similar, but emotional freedom techniques involves tapping points on the face and the torso and balancing your nervous system through accessing these points.
And this is not how you started out, right? You didn't come right out of school and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Tell me about how your life started out.
So my life started out, it was a blessing and a curse. I was good at pretty much everything. Everything in school was easy. So I was really good at math and science. So of course my parents said, well, you should be a doctor then. And, I kind of went along with it because I liked science. And so I went to college pre-med and I excelled and, did really well.
Excellent.
But I was always kind of looking on the side about how do you balance this life? I was always looking ahead thinking I was going to have kids someday and I better, figure things out so that I could work and balance everything. But, being a chemistry major was pretty stressful. And I got out of school and I decided when I graduated from college, I hated blood. I hated the idea of drugs. And I was realizing that's what doctors do. They mess with people's bodies and I didn't want to do that. I really believed in a more natural approach. So I didn't take that route. I told my father, I can't do this, but I was very interested in business. And so I had a minor in business in undergrad. And so I was I wanted to go, I think I applied to Harvard and some of the big schools, and they suggested I take a year off before I started MBA. So then I thought, well, I better get a job. So I actually got a job as a chemist, a research chemist for a big company, PPG Industries. And I did research for them for 4 years. But the thing is, I found out they would pay for my MBA. So I immediately started working on my MBA while I was a chemist. And it was a good time to do that. I was single. And so eventually I got my MBA. I left that company and went into the oil business. So I worked about 12 years for BP Oil in one of those, management development tracks where you change jobs every year. it was very stressful. And, during that time I had children. Well, I got married and had two children, and I was traveling a lot. It was crazy, so I had this real big awareness of, there's only so much energy, and you got to decide where you put it. I was used to doing everything really, really well until these kids came along, and then I'm like, you can't do everything. You can't be good at everything. And you have to sleep and take care of yourself. So it became very clear. And after I'd been there about 12 years and the kids were really, wearing me down quite a bit, the company was going through this time where they said, who wants to leave? And we'll pay you a whole lot of money. I'm like, that sounds really nice. And so I was one of the first to raise my hand. And believe it or not, things just, I don't think I was real intentional about where I was going next. But there was a job opening up at the local hospital that they were looking for somebody to represent them with the companies in the area about health and wellness and drug testing and all those kind of things. And it was a part-time job. So I applied for it. I immediately got it, but BP didn't let me go. So I had two jobs for a while. It was stupid.
What I was the opposite of what you were hoping for. Yeah.
So there were a few months there that were really crazy, but then I moved into that part-time job that gave me more time at home. And it was also health related. So I loved learning about health and also about how healthcare costs companies so much. I never knew, and how health could lead to productivity, which I think I always knew up here. But here I was in the middle of the research and in getting to know companies. And so I worked there for 5 years, grew the territory in a big way, made all these relationships with the local companies and mayors and cities and school districts. And then they suddenly closed the department. Had nothing really to do with me, but I knew everybody in town. So I just put the word out, hey, I'm looking for a job. I've grown a business. I love health. And so I ended up being hired by a local physician who was doing alternative medicine, and who, because she wasn't using insurance to market her practice, she needed somebody to come in and help her with newsletters and promote. Really, it was business development. So it was sales and marketing and relationships, just like I had done in the last job for the hospital, except it was even more fun because it was more natural health. So I got in there and learned everything I could. I got to try everything. So I got to try acupuncture and osteopathic manipulation. And they had this really cool allergy elimination technique that they used. And, so I was intrigued. I would write about it. I would interview patients and do all the outreach and set up speaking for the doctor. So that is what created this opening for me to make this complete change in my life, because I set up all these speaking engagements. I went with her, I watched her speak, and then I booked this speaking engagement in Switzerland for her. And I was so excited for her. The cool thing was, I blurted out one day, I said, I should go with you. And guess what she said? She said, yes. So she said, as long as you pay for your own airfare, you'll come with me. So, and we were good friends. It was kind of neat to be working in a small business with an owner. So anyway, I went to Switzerland with her, and I had the opportunity to learn. Well, the meeting, I didn't know what it was. I just wanted to go to Switzerland. It was energy psychology.
I'm so sorry. So I interrupted you right in the middle of your life when you were just about to go to Switzerland.
About to go to Switzerland. So where do you want me to take off again?
Thanks a lot, Louis. I appreciate it. Take care. Yeah, you had just, she told you that you were going to have to pay your own way, and you were just getting ready to go to Switzerland, and that's where we left off. So if you want to just talk about, take up like from where she said, as long as I paid my own way, I could go. And then we can and that will allow the editor to, I should have paused the recording. She's going to kill me, but.
Okay. So I was working for the doctor, setting up her uh, um, speaking engagements, and I was doing a great job at it. I got her booked for a meeting in Switzerland, and I was so excited about it. I had the audacity to blurt out, "I should go with you." And she replied, "Yes, as long as you pay your own way." And actually, the cool thing is, my dad had all these frequent flyer points that were expiring, and so he gave them to me, and I flew to Switzerland for free, first class. That's how. That's how
That
divine.
definitely feels like the
Yeah,
universe is speaking to you, right?
yeah,
This is meant to be.
yeah. And so when I got to Switzerland, it's funny. I just wanted to go to Switzerland. I hadn't really paid attention too much about what this meeting was, but it was a meeting of people from all over the world about energy psychology. And energy psychology is about using the body's energy system to manage emotions and to process trauma. And so, being in that meeting, I participated. I went to the breakouts, I went to the main speakers. And it was at that meeting that I had my first experience with tapping. And it was an amazing, it was like I was hit by lightning the first time I tried the technique, because they have you think of something stressful, you bring it into your mind, you really focus on it and vividly like see the event. And then you start tapping on these points in the body like this as you focus on the memory. And I could just feel like everything just melt out of me and go into the ground. It was most incredible. And I suddenly started thinking about all the stressed people I had worked with all those years. I'm like, I got to go home and tell people about this. This is incredible stuff, and it's so easy. And at the end of that meeting, the doctor and I, for whatever reason, we didn't fly home on the same plane. Maybe because I had I had those points that I used,
Maybe
and
she
so
wasn't going first class, so.
it was very interesting. So I'm at the airport to get on the plane going home, and I find the woman who taught me the tapping in the first seminar was booked on the same flight in first class next to me all the way back to Cleveland. How often does that happen? Because her parents lived there. She didn't really live there. And so we're sitting on the plane together. And while we were on the plane together, she said something, and it prompted this ugly memory in me. And I got kind of upset on the plane. And she said, "Do you want to tap for it?" And I tapped on the plane with her. And I had this amazing release. It went up the top of my head. And I think it's because we weren't grounded on the ground. It was very, so that really got my attention too. And I swore as soon as I was getting home, I got to learn more about this EFT, this emotional freedom techniques. So from there, I didn't quit my job then, but I got involved in that professional organization with my boss. I became a speaker every year because I understood holistic business and how to run a holistic small practice. And so that was my on ramp into this world of alternative health, using emotions to process, physical, emotional, relationships, money, because I know you're into the money side of things. Um, and so I just kept learning and learning. Did my old job for a while. Then in 2005, I it had come to the point where I really needed to do my own thing and to leave that solid place where I was getting paid every 2 weeks, and to say, it's time for me to go off on my own. Not quite sure what I was going to do, but I needed to leave and do something else.
So
Yeah.
tell me how that went. I mean, I know a lot of people, the whole reason for trying to achieve financial independence is so that you can make that change. You can just walk away from your job and don't look back. But I think even when that happens, sometimes people are so afraid to release that security. How were you able to do that when you didn't even necessarily know what you were going to do next?
So there were a couple of things at play. I'd always been a good saver. And please tell your clients or whoever you're working with, I had always saved at least 10% of my income. And I, put them in those automatic plans where your employer matches them. My husband did it too. And it helps to be married when you leave your job, because I did still have the benefits through him. I advise a lot of people that are thinking of going out on their own, and I tell them to be careful because healthcare is a scary piece that still isn't, well defined even today. But one of the things I did, my husband and I sat down and we looked at our income, our savings, our expenses, and really the key for me was looking at net worth. And I made a promise to him that if our net worth went down more than 10%, I was going to go back to something more stable. And this was 2005 when I did this. Well, guess what happened in 2008? Our net worth went down with the market more than 10%, but I'd been in business that long to know that had nothing to do with the viability of my business. It was about what we had in investments. And I also knew that you don't jump out of the market. When the market goes down, you stay strong and solid. And, all this tapping, to take your emotional, whenever you're in a state of fear, you never should make a decision.
Right.
Because your
Absolutely.
brain loses like 80% of its blood flow. Did you know that when you're under stress, the front part of your brain that really helps you talk and choose. So
and clearly, right?
Part of your brain is working well, and that's how tapping has served me very well, even with my investments today. And I will say, my practice has been good, but I still rely on those investments from way back when. That's almost like my paycheck now because I did so well investing, and also asset allocation, so that I move things around. And when you have a nice little chunk of change, you can move it around without a whole lot of fees too. So those things worked for me because I was comfortable with money. So I feel very blessed for that. But it wasn't without it was, it's still sometimes difficult being in business on my own. As I imagine it is. Like my printer broke yesterday.
My printer broke too.
And then you have to learn new things. And right now I'm a trainer, everything's going online. But I love the challenge of that. I love the dynamics of being able to decide to do something and put it right into play. So I've been in practice now. I've been on my own for 15 years plus. It's hard to believe.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. It's interesting. I used to say, because I've worked for myself for a long time, I used to say, I work for myself, but my boss is a bitch, because don't you feel like you just drive yourself so much harder than you'd ever put up with someone else doing to you?
Yeah. Small business is not for the faint of heart, and it can be lonely, right? I mean, one of the things I started when I started my business was a networking group for women who were in business. But a more spiritually holistic kind of networking group. I'm in National Association for Business Owners, and maybe you're in that group too. And that's all businessy. But I wanted a place where a woman could cry once in a while, and that there would be other people there to lift her and support her and inspire her and teach her. So that's part of what I do. And
it is
retreats too. I can't wait till we can get out of here again.
I know. I saw that on your website. You want to just take a detour and tell us a little bit about your retreats?
Well, every year I take women to lovely places, usually on water. So we've been to some places on Lake Erie, some places by wineries. We've gone to Sedona. We've been to the mounds, the ancient Indian mounds down in southern Ohio. But it's really an opportunity to go and be with like-minded people, maybe learn some new things like yoga or meditation or hypnosis, or how to do something new. We've had cooking demonstrations, we've had dance, we had belly dance one year, and of course there's tapping, journaling, all sorts of things. So I just run summer spring camp for ladies, and it's all ages. We've had pregnant ladies, we've had a lady bring a baby one year. So they tend to be a little older because I'm older, but everybody's welcome. They just have to agree that they'll be open-minded. And so I love doing my trainings in nice places too. So that it feels sad right now having to do everything on Zoom. Wouldn't you agree? It's, well, maybe you're out more than I am, but
Yeah, I mean, I get outside, obviously, but what you're saying, like interacting with other people in that kind of a setting where you've got all the energy in the room and everybody's, fired up. I definitely miss that. I definitely
yeah.
miss that. Now we're just in pairs, a twos and threes. Sometimes you can get together and stuff. I can finally go see my parents again, which was a long time that they,
No.
we're kind of, because my dad has had a stroke a couple of years ago. And so everybody's concerned about him and his health and stuff, and they're older, so it was like 2.5 months I couldn't even see them. We did a
No,
couple of Zoom calls
I
and stuff, but
just saw
it's
my
not the
parents
same.
last week. They let me in the house for the first time with a mask on. I mean, since February.
Yeah.
And my mom has dementia, so she probably wondered what the heck was going on with us wearing masks.
Yeah, I think about that with little kids too. They must be like, this is kind of weird. I can't see anybody's face, because it's, do you feel this way too, like people are not making eye contact very often too. You're like walking around and you pass someone in a store and it's like, oh, I've got to step aside, I've got to get out of your way, and it just feels kind of, icky.
Doesn't feel like you're you, because I was thinking, I mean, I could schedule some things outdoors with groups right now, but to be outdoors and have your mouth covered, because it's harder to hear, and you know
Yeah,
I think it's going to have to be Zoom for a while
yeah,
longer, or
yeah,
small groups like you're saying, because it's harder to connect with your face covered up.
yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I find that, I'll smile at someone and I think, duh, they can't see you. you know? Maybe they can see my eyes get crinkly. I don't know. That's about it. So, um, you've talked a little bit about EFT and how it works, but can you give us a little bit more of maybe a scientific or a little bit more of a energy or sort of a explanation for folks who have never heard of it and just don't have a clue what we're
Right.
talking about?
Right. So when I started this, I had an experience and I was just converted immediately. There was no research then at all. Today, as I speak with you, there's probably about 120 valid scientific, you know, credible studies that are out there, and including double-blind studies and repeated studies. And where they found that tapping seems to be making a difference, that they believe it connects to the amygdala, which is the fight or flight center in the brain. That it neutralizes the stress response in the amygdala, and at the same time brings down the stress hormone cortisol. That has been measured, and there have been several studies that measured it. The most recent, biggest one showed a 44% reduction in cortisol in an hour, in an hour
Wow,
session of
that's
tapping
amazing.
with a group. And that was compared to people who just sat quietly in a waiting room. And then the other control group was a group of people that did a breathing class. And in both of those control groups, the hormone only went down about a half of what the EFT group did. So, and they have separated their tapping is part of the protocol for lowering stress with EFT, but you also use words. So it is like cognitive therapy. You know what you're working on, and you say something like, if we were working on, say, somebody's panic in a line in a grocery store. Let's just say there were people all around me coughing in line. That would be a traumatic event, okay? So they would
Right
do
now.
a setup statement. They would be tapping the side of their hand, and they would say 3 times before they tap on all the points. They would say, even though I have this traumatic memory from the grocery store, I deeply and completely accept myself. And they would say that 3 times or something like that. Or I choose to be calm now, even though I have this traumatic memory from the grocery store that's still bothering me. I choose to relax and feel safe now. So that's another way you could say it. But basically, you start off by admitting what's bothering you, and making a choice. Loving or accepting yourself is always a pretty good choice to make, or accepting all your feelings. And then you use a reminder phrase and you tap all the points. Upset in the grocery store, coughing in the grocery store, and you go through all the points about 7 to 10 times on each point. And then you finish with a nice deep breath. I encourage stretching, because that helps your body have more room for the energy to move around. But the research is really showing that it balances the brain, the left-right brain, and it clears out, because when things happen to us, we hold on to them in our bodies. Animals often shake or run away or do something to let that energy go, and we kind of recycle it and it just stays stuck. So that's quickly what it is, but it's been validated in particular for PTSD, very effective for PTSD, even things that are really old, that have never been taken care of.
Things you never really dealt with.
Yeah, so like Vietnam vets right now, if they've tried EFT for the first time, often they're sleeping for the first time.
Wow.
I've had people in my groups that I didn't even know had some of these things, because a lot of times you can work on something without really talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You use a small reminder phrase and you use the tapping, and it processes because the client or that person knows what they're working on.
Yeah.
And that's they're able to focus on it. PTSD is one thing, anxiety, depression, weight loss, and body related things, and pain is an area that's fascinating to me. Somebody can come in with a headache or a backache or hip pain and do a couple rounds of tapping and be intrigued that they haven't taken an aspirin or anything and they're suddenly comfortable. Now sometimes it won't last if you haven't really gotten to what it's really about. And sometimes it just gives you enough of a calming effect, because you're bringing that stress hormone down. You're taking down inflammation by doing that. And you're also boosting your immune health. I think there was another study that showed immune globulin, the good thing that helps protect us, goes up when your stress comes down. Yeah. So in this time of COVID-19, it's even more important to know about techniques like EFT.
Yeah. Well, why do you think it's not more, why do you think everyone doesn't know about it? Why do you think it's not more widespread?
So this is interesting. I think that there are a lot of folks from the old ways that find EFT very threatening. If you go and look on Wikipedia, they totally slam it on Wikipedia. And we've tried as a professional organization to put the new studies up, and the next day they're gone. I think that there are some people in possibly the pharmaceutical world or the traditional psychotherapy world, they have a lot to lose if people find out about EFT, because it's inexpensive. It's actually empowering. Many people start off working with a coach or a therapist, learning EFT and really focusing in on their own traumatic stuff in a few sessions. And then they go off on their own with a lifelong skill. That's not quite the way mental health works.
That's no good. We can't have people cured. That won't work. It's like a car that lasts forever. We can't have that.
And even a lot of the studies that are coming through right now show that EFT and cognitive behavioral therapy are very similar in their outcomes and results, but EFT will take half the time to get to the same result. And that's the distinction. I think you get an extra quick rush towards your goal when you use EFT.
That's something that I think, I've always believed this without any actual proof, that, when something happens to us, right, it produces a chemical, right? That's why we feel things, right? Mm-hmm. Feelings, I think, are caused by chemicals. Is that I have never researched it, but I believe that so that something happens, that chemical gets stored somewhere in your body, and until you can let it go, you're going to continue to have that issue, if you will, right? I mean, So this makes perfect sense to me. I mean, I think, but I can certainly see why. I mean, if people are, if
Well,
that profession
it
is threatened
looks
by
fun.
chiropractors and all of holistic, sorry.
Well, I
Sorry,
think one of the things that works against us is it looks really funny too when you do it. Like I have to get over, being in public because a lot of times I would be, do little segments for the news, and of course the news anchor would make fun of me after I finished doing it. It looks strange, and my dream is that one day you just go into an airport or any public place and you see people just tapping because it's good for you. Yeah, it's a great way to stay young, have fun, and get more done. That's what I tell everybody, make it part of life.
so is this something that you would do like sort of every morning or something? Is it something you incorporate into your daily routine?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it before bed to help you sleep better. You can do it in the morning to help you wake up better. You can use it to amplify gratitude because, and I just led a group on using it for a pity party. We go through these moments where poor me, everything's going bad. It's a perfectly opportunity when you're aware of something that feels horrible or you're hurt or whatever. You just admit it, and you have the feeling, instead of stuffing it away, because when we stuff it away, that's what becomes a headache or a tummy ache or a backache or that stuck feeling in your throat or you can't breathe right. You might as well just feel it and move through it. It's almost like it's a wave of stuff that moves through you. The thing that I think is fascinating, there's a couple things. When you work with something and you convert that energy, you can even think about what do you want instead? What would you take that yucky energy and turn it into? Because energy doesn't go away, it just transforms. And the other thing that I will say, I do a lot of work with groups with tapping. And why do I like groups? There's something that happens when two or more are gathered for the benefit of something good. And I think Jesus talked about that once.
Yeah.
But,
Napoleon Hill definitely talked about it.
yeah. So, but, when you tap with a bunch of people, we call it borrowing benefits. It's like the amplification is turned up, the knob goes up. Because even if people are tapping to help somebody else, like there's one person in the group that maybe has excruciating back pain. So everybody else in the group puts aside their little worries and we just tap together to send energy to that person that has the back pain. And it's incredible. But the thing is, that woman who's been concerned about her son who's sick out of state, suddenly she's relaxed about him. So you get this spontaneous clearing of stuff when you tap together. It's quite beautiful. I just love seeing people's awestruck faces, like, what happened? What just happened? What did you do? I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just helped you do what you can do, what we all have the capacity to do.
Is it the same when you're not all in the room together, like a
Oh,
Zoom
well,
group?
yeah. I mean, I've been I've been having free EFT sessions during COVID-19. I started on March 17th, and as I talk with you today, I've already done 81 free sessions.
Oh my
I
goodness.
used to do them every single day, and that got a little exhausting. So we're down to 3 days a week now, and I'm not sure if I'll keep it at 3 days a week. But I see that people need support, and they need a place they can show up and get some free tapping, and so I'm happy to do that. And they're getting results. A lot of times they show up and they're like, I'm feeling good. Who can we send energy to? So we'll
Oh,
tap for the healthcare workers, or we'll tap for people that are worried about going back to work or whatever. We'll do that. Yeah.
wow. Interesting. So
Mhm.
how can people participate in those? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of curiosity after this conversation.
Yeah. Actually, if they connect with me on Facebook,
Hmm.
Betsy Muller, Muller.
Yep.
My events list they can see other events I'm doing too. I've got some groups starting in the next few weeks, but those free groups, all you have to do is go to the link and you'll get a registration link. You just have to fill that out and tell me why you want to be part of the group. And then it's free. I don't want any trolls on there. So they have to
Right.
take time to fill out the form. And then
Interesting.
we have a Facebook group too where I post the videos. So even if people can't be on the call, they can check the videos out too.
That's very generous. Very nice. I
Yeah.
think everybody will definitely do that.
Yeah.
I I'm going to encourage my mom actually to do that. I told you my dad had a stroke and he can't walk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just so much on her. You
I
know what I
know.
mean? She is just doing
Hard.
everything, and it's hard to, and especially when I couldn't even go see them, and it was just all her doing everything, and I know that the stress and the physical stress, as well as the emotional stress, as well as
Well, being alone is one of the components of trauma
yeah,
that, it's an element of trauma. And so the minute you can connect with others and you're not alone, your trauma level goes down. So good for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is EFT your main? Do you practice other types of holistic medicine?
I do some other tools too. I mean, I really love Eden Energy Medicine. I'm certified as a soul detective. Um, you know, I've studied so many different things. I can't even list them. Some hypno, neuro linguistic um, programming and hypnotherapy and movement. I'm really into moving and dance and um, meditation, yoga, all those kind of things. But every client is a little bit different. So, I come into my private client relationships very, I guess, very client focused. What do they need? What my toolkit can help. And, I've written a couple books that give a sense of all the things I do. But really, some people come to me for business coaching because I've started a business. They want a quicker way to get their book written, and they want to work with somebody who's done that. They want to work with somebody who can give them shortcuts to feeling better. That's really, I'm all about the shortcut, not to change it, to make it easier.
Yeah, there's no reason to go all around the bush if you can just go straight over.
Right. That's when you want to pay somebody else to help you out. They've been there already. They know how to get through the jungle.
Exactly. Exactly. You need a guide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually that brings us to money, which you touched on earlier, that there's so much energy around money. I mean, money is energy, but it's also, there's so much like somehow there's all this, I don't know, BS around money about, oh, at least this is the way I was taught, oh, rich people are bad. They can't be trusted. They're greedy. They're stingy. They're blah, 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 blah. And now I want to be a rich person. It's like, well, I don't want to be any of those bad things. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm not meant to like this person who has an expensive vehicle or a big house or whatever. But I actually, and then you grow up and you say, well, wait a minute. And you start to question it, but it's so ingrained
Yeah.
in us. How do you break through that and bring money into a positive place in your
Yeah.
mind?
So yeah, our experiences with money really go back to those core beliefs and a lot of them, the beliefs we picked up from our parents before the age of 7. And especially if some of that negative programming got through, everybody deserves a chance to think about what they believe. And so the money is the root of all evil, or rich people are mean, or rich people, it's not, it's not holy to have money or whatever.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
it. It's sinful.
Yeah. I was fortunate to be raised. My father is a portfolio manager, and he's almost 89, and he's still consulting with high wealth people. And I never realized how lucky I was until really the last few years that I got all these beliefs planted in me about that, the market is great and you don't need to be afraid and there's always an opportunity, and money multiplies, and yes, savings is an important thing, and avoid debt when you can, and all these, but that has served me well. And really, I always tell people at the end of the day, it's about your net worth. And your net worth should always, until you're retired, should be going up. And then when you retire, you live off of that good lifestyle for a while. Yeah. And your health, that's the other thing. Your health, if it's not in place, you're going to erode your net worth. So, have things in place like long-term care insurance, and to check your health insurance policies for those things that might not be covered that could run you dry, and be careful about your debt and credit cards and pay those bills. Yeah, don't let them get out of control.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, this morning I actually was speaking to a guy who's doing some carpentry work at my house, and he's all upset because he's trying so hard to get his credit score up and it's not going up and stuff. And we just talked about a few little tips, just a few little strategies. And I mean, it's going to make all the difference. He's trying to buy a house and his credit score is stuck. And I said, well, he said, my wife's score is going up and I don't understand why, because I've got, I pay my bills on time and blah, blah, blah. But there are little tricks and tips and techniques, but you have to be intentional.
Yeah.
About
and
that stuff.
In business too, I was consulting with someone this week and she's like, oh, how am I going to make more money? And I'm like, well, let's look at your expenses. Because, if you can find ways to cut expenses, eliminate expenses, and actually your health insurance was one area she was paying way too much. And when she told me what she was paying, I clued her in about the kind of insurance my husband and I have now, which is an alternative product, but it's wonderful. And so I love, she's like, boy, this phone call with you today, I just became wealthy because we had this talk. Well, yes, sometimes it's not what you think it's going to be. But money can be there if you just open yourself up to looking at how it could grow, or how it could just be better than it is right now.
That is a key that I think a lot of people miss, is spending less.
Yeah.
Instead of making more,
Well, I get the best deal on everything. And I went and I had to buy a printer today. I'm like, okay, I get real quiet. I'm like, I'm getting the best deal out there on my printer. So I did a little research, ended up with Costco. It's coming tomorrow.
Excellent.
I think I got a great deal. Yeah. My husband goes, oh, it'll probably not go so great. I'm like, shut up.
Why you put that out there?
What if it's hard to set up? I'm like, it's never. It's an HP printer. It'll be fine.
Exactly. Interesting. So for folks who want to, first of all, tell us, you've written 3 books. Is that correct?
I have written many books, but the 2 books the books I'm most proud of are part of my Energy Makeover series. So Energy Makeover, A Conscious Way to Stay Young, Have Fun, and Get More Done came out in 2012. And then my newest book, which is really the book for today for people, is called The Comeback, The Energy Makeover Love Story. And The Comeback is a true story about how I went through trauma. I had never been through a big trauma. And this trauma involved, my husband and I were in Michigan taking just a weekend getaway trip. He went out in the morning for a morning run. We're both athletic, and he didn't come back. And when you're on vacation, your husband doesn't come back, you get a little worried. I called 911, and within the next few minutes, the dispatcher had 2 police cars zooming up to the B&B I was at, and officers that looked very grim, holding out his Fitbit and a room key to me
Oh
and
no.
explaining that he was found lifeless on a running track about, less than half a mile from our B&B. Good
Oh,
news was that someone saw that he was there. They called 911 and they did CPR on him. And the squad came. They shocked him about 6 or 7 times. And he was a John Doe. So I had to go up and find him in this hospital. I didn't have a car. I was there with some friends. So they drove me to the ER. And it was a rough day. Basically, the book explains all the different ways I was traumatized, but the worst one was coming into the ER and being, going to the desk in the ER. It was totally empty. And the guy didn't even look at it. I said, my husband was just brought here by an ambulance. Can you tell me where he is? And the guy didn't even look at me. He picked up the phone. He said, paging social work. And I'm sitting there
that
thinking,
can't be good.
and then out this door comes a social worker and the pastoral care person, the minister for the hospital. And they lead me into a room, and then they just sit me in this room and say, well, we don't have any news yet, but you can stay here. And yeah, so
That's
I
not very
did.
satisfying.
Later, he was alive. Eventually, I found out, but they didn't say what was going on. The doctor comes and tells me that his eyes aren't responding to light. They suspect that he went without oxygen for too long and probably has a brain injury, and that they would move him to ICU, and that I was just supposed to wait and then go up there. So,
Oh man.
So that was a hard day. Even now, there's still little bits of that's still, when I think about them, can get me worked up.
Oh yeah.
And so had to make some phone calls to my kids, had to figure out had to start canceling things. And they put him in a coma is what ended up happening for 3 days, and took his body temperature down, and then slowly tried to bring him out of the coma. He had seizures. We had to get transferred to a different hospital. So we went from Holland to Grand Rapids. And every day the doctors would come in and, give me these grim reports. But the thing is, I started taking care of myself that very first day. As soon as I got back to the B&B, I started tapping. I took a lot of walks. I got out in nature when I wasn't in the hospital. I ate right. I wasn't eating any sugar then, which was quite a gift. And day by day, little by little, I got myself back. And talk about getting your brain online so you can talk to a doctor, so you can make some really tough decisions and then I started integrating his care too. We came back to Cleveland to a rehab hospital with him basically like an infant. He had to be moved back in an ambulance. And then, months there, transferred him to a 10-bed unit that focused on brain injury. That was scary. I remember the day they said, well, what are your goals for him? And I'm like, what can you say? I want my husband back. But, part of me was saying, just get him out of this diaper, And
Yeah, no kidding. Oh man.
But the good news is every day it got better. Even when the doctors couldn't see it, I could see little changes. And he eventually got out, came home, learned to drive again, and returned to his retirement job was head coach for the lacrosse team at our local high school. And had some great seasons, went to the playoffs, and so we got past it. It's hard to believe that the brain is that resilient, that the body is that resilient. So
It really sounds like a miracle.
yeah. And he's written several of the chapters in the book, so people can see that he really did get it back. We do have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel too, so if people want to meet him and hear a little bit about the story, those are out there too.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's the comeback?
Well, they come back. And I think what's similar to now is, none of us know when this is going to be over. I
Right.
didn't know while I was going through it when it was going to be over. But the thing we can all do is be our very best today. Right, the present moment is the eye of the storm. It's kind of, everything's swirling around you, but you can be really peaceful in that place of just being here
Yeah.
yourself, accepting all you're feeling, breathe, and find some small delights even in the midst of that, to
Yeah.
take care of yourself. I slept really well then. I continue to sleep well now. So many people come to me all worked up. I haven't slept in years. And
Oh gosh.
I teach them a few things and then they're sleeping. I love when that happens
Yeah.
because, oh, if you sleep,
It's
you
the
can
key to
get,
everything, don't you think?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like if I don't get a good night's sleep, everything bothers me. Things are just so much more, something small seems huge because you just don't have I don't know,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
can't deal with stuff.
When you wake up and you haven't been rested,
Yeah.
that's not right. We all deserve a good night's sleep.
I remember when I was young, I still remember when I was young. I was trying to go on vacation or something. So I worked a full week. I worked back to back shifts. So I was
Mhm.
basically working, 16 hours a day and then trying to sleep, and it was daytime and I couldn't sleep very well. And by the end of the week, it was like a joke. I couldn't do simple math.
Right,
I
right.
was just like, I can't eat like two and two. I don't know. And I would just laugh, I just couldn't even.
Speak either. Like you try to answer a question. We really.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. Um, well, I've got on the website for the podcast, which is getyourfillpodcast.com. I'm going to
Mhm.
put links to all of the stuff that we talked about today, your Facebook page and your YouTube channel,
Mhm.
your regular website, and also where people can buy the book. Is it best for them to buy it on your website or on Amazon or?
Amazon is the best place. There is a link on my website too, but it'll take them to Amazon because
Okay, perfect.
that's
Perfect.
where everybody goes. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
so Betsy, what should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Ah, hmm. I don't know.
Is there anything else that you think people need to know to hear from you? Some news or some wisdom that folks need to hear?
Well, I think if there was anything I want everybody to know, see where my hand is. It's over my heart. And really, that is the place where our goodness and our genius really lives. And if we can just quiet this mind and get into our bodies and get into our heart will lead us to the right things. I always advise people to use their heart to know what a yes feels like. And this works in real estate, in finance, in life decisions. A yes feels light, like a little birdie or a butterfly. And people say, well, you also need to know what a no feels like. The thing is, a no can feel like nothing. So a no, when you're afraid, a no feels, ugh, but a yes can feel ugh, too. So get calm, go to the heart, and get to know what yes feels like. That's my best advice for everybody because that can fuel your life purpose and your relationships and every decision and every turn on the path. Know this.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One other question I just thought of as you were saying that, Betsy, is people not knowing where they need to go, right? The path. What's the path if you don't know what your future, where you want to be, what you want your life to look like?
Well, sometimes you need a therapist or a coach to be your guide for a short time. I always say for a short time because we are all designed to be able to do these things in our own sovereign place. Okay. A trusted partner is a good thing for the path, especially when you're feeling shaky and you're not quite sure who you are and where you're going. Um, but you need somebody who will take you, teach you, empower you, and then let you try those training wheels by yourself.
Yeah,
Um, I don't like dependent relationships for the long term. I never, you know, I tell people who come to me, I say, let's do 4 sessions together and see what happens. And after those 4 sessions, I'll be honest, if you need 4 more. I don't do single sessions because I don't think you can expect a whole lot in one session.
Yeah.
Not everybody's ready or relaxed enough to really get the full worth of a session either.
Yeah.
And we have to click. So I always, you know, offer a chance for people to get to know me before they spend any money too. So we'll have a, you know, 15-20 minute conversation for those people that are serious and wanting to partner. So
what would a session look like? You know, someone like not the intro session. You talk to somebody and there is some synergy, and you say, okay, we can work together. Then what kind of things would happen?
Yeah. So an example, I'm working with somebody now who came to me about sleep. Okay, sleep and anxiety.
Yeah.
But as I get to know her and assign her a little bit of homework between sessions, it's very clear there's some events from her past. And especially when I talk about things that happened before the age of 7, that are specific events that cause traumatic, maybe, you know, they're not big T, but they create beliefs, or they create the way that individual sees the world. You know, to go back and work on those specific events. I'm also trained in something called matrix re-imprinting, which is a technique that goes back and works with that little child very safely in a way that empowers. And you can actually rewire the brain around that memory to create a different memory to replace that old memory. And so, you know, we don't always go in there right away. Initially, I'm teaching tapping the first session so that they know how to tap, and we have an early win. Like, say, if your neck or your shoulders are all tensed up, we tap to help them breathe more deeply, and so they get the technique, and then we get into more of the ugly stuff later, because that's scary. They don't want to open that up. I'm not sure they're ready to open it up. And I have to be careful because I'm working on the telephone or Zoom with people. I got to make sure they're, you know, that we're safe. They are safe. They know tapping well enough that the tapping is going to work when we work on the deeper stuff. It's usually not as scary as they thought it was going to be when we finally get there. But people can stop breathing while you're, you know, there's certain things that really rile people. And yes, that's exactly what they need to work on, but I don't push it. We go at their pace. Often a session will start, I'll just say, what do you want to work on today? So I'm willing to be what they need me to be for them. And then I'll nudge a little bit if I think they can go deeper or further. It's about asking some good questions. Yeah.
Interesting. Betsy, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I really think people are going to get a lot out of it, and I'm sure everybody's going to be joining your Facebook group.
Well, you are an excellent person to be with. I envision you and I would be good friends if we were in the same town.
Well, once we can travel again, maybe I can attend one of your retreats or something. That would be a...
You're in Boston, right? You're Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm coming out there to do a wedding Labor Day weekend. Knock out wood.
Excellent. You know, I actually have part of my house. I have the person who came to the door was the building inspector, because I have a single family house that I'm turning into a 2-family. And somebody told him I was trying to turn it into a 3-family, which is ridiculous because it's not big enough. But anyway, so I had to deal with that in the middle of our call, and I apologize for that. But the long and the short of that is that next door to where I live, I have a little adorable little space, which is on Airbnb, that you could rent, or you could come and stay. I hope you would be my guest and stay there. And it's right across the street from the beach. And it's really, yeah.
So the wedding's in Newburyport.
Okay. So yeah, that would be about, it's not like right around the corner. It's about a 40-minute drive to Newburyport. So yeah, you'd probably rather stay right there, but it is very close to the airport. So.
Okay. Well, we're probably driving. That's the thing.
Oh, Oh, okay.
I know, a 10, 11-hour drive. Yes. But,
Well, let me at least buy you lunch.
you might hear from me because, we'll be up that way. And as long
Yeah,
as we're taking that long drive, maybe we'll stick around for a few days.
that would be wonderful. I would love that. And I think you'd love this little space. It's really cute. And like I said, the beach is right across the street. So you could really have a relaxing time. I know you said you like water, like being near the water. So
I do. I got to move. I
yeah.
need to be closer to water. All right.
All right.
Okay. Well, if there's any questions, let me know. And,
I
and
will.
then let me know when this is out so I can help promote it for you too.
It'll be on July 19th. I'll send you a link. All
Very
right.
good. All
Thanks,
right.
Betsy. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.